All right. Hello, everybody. Hello, folks. Tara here with a Wifey Wake Up No Makeup podcast. As usual, though, however, I am using my trusty lip gloss. I love this stuff. It's Jane Iredale. By the way, if you just want to like a little bit of color, it's great too because it'll work as a really light blush as well. So just, if you're wondering, but no powder even today. So, I have to say that. First of all, because my husband recommended that I do these podcasts without makeup. And I think I still feel a little nervous. So that's why I have to talk about it. Anyways, I hope you all are having a wonderful day. I have a fun topic for you today, which is real TradWives, the Sasquatch of modern relationship culture. Ready? This is going to be fun. So I've thought about this for a while, and I think the real sad thing about a true TradWife, and I'm talking about like the original, the OG TradWife, right? Is that they're like a wild animal that never comes out of the bush to be filmed, right? So it makes you wonder, especially this day and age, is she a myth or is she a reality? So I think what it comes down to is she's just, well, having known the real TradWives, and I always hear like they're like the real TradWives of, right? Which state or which city would that be? That'd be fun to kind of riff on. So chime in the comments on that one. Real TradWives of, that would be amusing. But I think what I know about them is they're just too content, they're too busy, and honestly, I think too wise to step into the spotlight and be exposed. And in some ways, that got me to thinking that she's kind of like Bigfoot. She's elusive, she's rare, and surrounded by internet speculation, right? And is it myth or reality? But this is not just a cheeky topic. There actually is some real content in here. So roll with me here. So what the real TradWife and Bigfoot have in common are they know that modern society is out there, but they prefer to stay in their corner of the woods or the neighborhood, right? Makes sense. Not only are they camera shy, but they instinctively know that once they let the camera in, even if it's their own, well, Sasquatch doesn't have their own, unless you watch those AI videos, they do. But they instinctively know that once that camera is let in, it's the beginning of the end of their sweet bubble existence. Also, their lives are all about their family, feeding them, nurturing them, and even protecting them with all their heart and soul, and even to the death. I'm going to, maybe you do or do not believe in Sasquatch, but if you listen to, for example, some stories on Sasquatch Chronicles, plug there for Sasquatch Chronicles, they have some amazing stories, and I think very soon you would become a believer. And something that you commonly hear is that people are just kind of stumble into them. Like if you try to look for them, you won't find them. But the occurrences happen when they just kind of stumble into them. And usually the only trouble happens typically when the kids are around or they have a family to protect. And other than that, like, they'll have this huge bellow of a yell. Anyways, I'm kind of going off topic, but both are all about their family and will absolutely defend their family. Also, they don't send their children to daycare, right? I mean, that's an obvious one. They're both very instinctive. And I think that's something that is really lost in our culture these days as human beings, right? Those who are animals, closer to the animal realm, they absolutely thrive and need to live off of instinct. And I think that's what makes, in a way, the real TradWife kind of a mystical creature in a way, because so many of us have learned, have edited out that natural intuitive nature. And if you see a photo of one, you can assume that it's AI generated. That's a little tongue in cheek, but it's kind of true too. And I would love to hear anything that you want to add to that list, because there certainly, I think, are some gems that are missing there. Now, again, Sasquatch Chronicles, that's the one that I mentioned. They have some amazing stories. And hopefully, the point of this podcast is that you will find some really great stories connecting with the real TradWife in your neck of the woods. So, in my recent podcast just a few days ago, Marriage is Not a Mold, I really strive to point out that these ideals, TradWife is a really great example, that we have as models are not really a healthy way to build a marriage. And I go into that topic more in that podcast. But something I want to highlight is that there may be the person who simply did not grow up with a good example of how to have a good relationship, and particularly the female or the wifely role. And so in that case, we do tend towards ideals. And that ideal of TradWife might, if it appeals to us, I encourage you to look into what specifically appeals to you, because what is being conveyed out there in the media as TradWife is akin to Barbie. It's an ideal, but it's not real. And however, you might be in the pickle where you're like, well, I don't know, I need some kind of model. We instinctively look for a model when we don't have that knowledge in our life. And that's a good thing. And what I would encourage you to do is to actually look for the actual person, not the ideal. Just a funny side note, for example, is, Barbie is an ideal in a way, but I heard back in the day that if Barbie were a real person, her feet are too small and other portions too big, that she would actually fall over. And yes, she would fall forward. And so that's just an interesting way of looking at really considering what are our ideals, because as girls in particular, we do grow up seeing these models, these ideals, but not consciously knowing what is being conveyed to us, that this is an ideal. And so we strive for that shape. We strive for that hair color, that eye color, when it's just not attainable. Now, I'm not saying to not have goals and be aiming for something, but be very aware of what you are striving towards and not just blindly following the social media train, let's say. So instead, I recommend that you find a real person to model. And if this is the TradWife type, my point is that this person may be difficult to find, but I'm going to give you a few hints, because they are not on the internet telling and showing everybody how to be like them. It's simply not in their nature. And that's kind of what I find actually quite humorous. But I do recommend that you still strive to find this person or these people, because especially if you're really wanting that, more traditional roles, if you never had that in your life, it's going to be nearly impossible to implement that. So there's really nothing like being in the presence of someone that you strive to be like. And especially if has a couple of decades of experience on you, you're blessed in that situation. So last but not least, where do you find her? And there are many ways that you can encounter her. And I would start, it's kind of like, you're hunting out in the wild. Observe her, okay? You'll probably find her at the grocery store in the middle of the day. You may find her volunteering at her children's or grandchildren's school or events. She'll be helping elsewhere in the community. She may be at church. She'll be maybe at a late morning exercise class or a gathering of women. But most of all, she's going to be at home. So how do you find the woman who is at home? And how do you model after her? And what I would say is, in general, it's kind of like dating. You just got to get out there, right? And you got to get around the groups and types of people where you're going to encounter this type of person. And hopefully someday you can rub elbows in some way, maybe even be invited over as a guest, because typically they're very much about hosting events, welcoming people in. But a great way to do this would be actually to be at those same places where she is volunteering, where she is helping out. And wherever you encounter her, observe her. And watch, listen, and especially if she's the type of woman, there are plenty of, let's say plenty of, I'm just saying that they're rare, but there are some women who appear to be traditional on the surface, but pay a special attention to the ones who look lovingly and fondly upon their husbands, and they return that as well, vice versa. Maybe he's initiating and she responds. Then you really know that's the one to tune into and observe, help, offer to help. That's, first of all, a very good wifely trait. This type of person, they go hand in hand, is offering to help, being there of assistance. And by her side, you'll pick up many, many things. And ask her questions. Honestly, she may not have answers, to your blatant questions. Most of all, you're going to learn by observing, watching, and listening. And I hope this serves you very well. And again, going back to my Marriage is Not a Mold podcast, just remember, even if you are struggling and we want to create this ideal relationship, remember, every situation is unique. It is healthy, good and healthy, to pull bits and pieces of great qualities that you see in people, in situations, and apply those to your life and make it uniquely your own, because each couple is so very unique. And most of all, last but not least, I have to say one more thing: communicate with each other, communicate with your husband. The danger is going off in a direction and saying, I'm going to make all these changes and this is what I'm going to be, without communicating with him, and you end up missing each other. So make sure along the way, especially, that you're communicating and you have the same goals. I would love to hear your comments in the comment section, especially your additions, adding to the list, and the Real Housewives of title. Would love to hear the cities that come to your mind. And take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.